Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a CxO Global Forum. And today's session and today's topic of discussion is very interesting, which is data governance and privacy. So this is something जिसमें कि अभी पाकिस्तान में ओवरऑल अगर हम बात करें तो डेटा गवर्नेंस और पॉलिसी मतलब ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल लेवल पे ऑलमोस्ट एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड व्हेन वी स्पीक अबाउट फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस वहाँ पे काफी ज्यादा इट इज इन प्लेस हाउएवर there are certain things which are in rather I would say it's cooking and it's almost coming जिसके कि हमारे फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट्स भी कुछ आ गए हैं which is around data governance, data policies, data framework किस तरह होना चाहिए governance का and for to have to take this discussion further, we have all the right and relevant people coming from different industries. So we have Adnan Saab, who is from the industry side. He has been into the industry side as a CIO, as well as he has been into information security. So he is double heading. Then we have Hadi Tabani, a young emerging entrepreneur and a very intellectual person I always learn from. Hadi has been into and has been working with data sciences and analytics, and in this field of data in Pakistan, he has exposures as well as in USA. Then we have Ahmed Saab and Zeeshan Saab, who are coming from different industries and heading the organizations, and definitely have a different perspective of the overall topic and data and its importance. Last but not least, we have Kashif Siddiqui Saab, as I mentioned, that फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में इस वक्त डेटा की सबसे ज्यादा काम हो रहा है क्योंकि वहाँ पे पब्लिक का डेटा इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल होती है जिसकी सिक्योरिटी इंस्टीट्यूशन की core responsibility and pretty much under the regulations of State Bank as well. So I welcome you all and thank you for your time for the session. So I'll put my you're most welcome, sir. So I'll put my first question about data governance policy. So let's start for the audience as an introduction, and I'd request you guys to quickly introduce yourself as well as share your perspective about and what is data governance and how it works in general, and specifically in your area. So I'd request Adnan Saab to please start. Please, or take from over to you.
Good afternoon, all. This is Adnan. I'm head of ICT. I'm working as head of ICT and CxO at Ornua. So I'm joining from Dublin, Ireland. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. So data governance is a big topic, and I'm going to give you mostly the European perspective, how the data are being managed in the Western world. I think before we are going into too much detail, we need to make sure that we are looking for data governance with respect to set of practices and policies to ensure that high data quality, integrity, and availability throughout the organization. So it's not only about you manage data, you need to make sure the integrity and availability of data is also paramount to this. The data quality management, like I'm part of the manufacturing sector. So for us, most important thing for us is the data quality, because the business, especially finance guys, are making decisions based on the data provided by our business units. So in our example, we use Power BI, we then integrate data, our ERP data from different sources. So the information coming from our transaction data and other sources, the integrity and availability of data is very important. I think my voice is being repeated. I'm not sure someone can.
No, we can. It's clear. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So if I look for the main key components of the data, first thing we're talking about the quality of the data. Is the data relevant, and is the data is making sense in scenarios where you want to use it? It has to be accurate and it has to be relevant to the scenario you want to use it. So you can't use incorrect data in different scenarios. The data stewardship is very important. There has to be someone accountable to and responsible to manage the data. So in our case, we have a master data manager who is accountable for making sure, even take a basic example of supplier creation process. So we are a global organization, 14 factories globally. What we don't want is every factory is creating their own supplier information. Even changing a bank account detail has to be governed, because there could be a threat that someone man in the middle is trying to change is asking us to change the bank account details. So how we make sure we govern that whole process. The data security is very important. It's need to know basis. If you don't need to have access to data, you must not have access to that data. The life cycle management, which we use of 65 to make sure the data retention, the quality of the data, and making sure that if data is no longer needed, it must not be available. In Europe, GDPR is one of the main paramount of data security. So we need to make sure for individuals, if we don't keep data, especially like emails, employment records, there is a relevant laws that we have to fulfill to make sure that the data life cycle is managed. When data needs to be retained, it should be retained only the number of years that it is. You have to have a business justification. The information about metadata of the data is also very important. A data is nothing until unless you add additional bit around that data to make a meaningful record. So I think I've covered 3 or 4 things. Legal and compliance is another area, but I'll let other
So, no, Adnan
participants.
sahab, very relevant points, and I will definitely touch base on something that you have mentioned. And since you are in Europe, so I'll within the next round, I'll touch base on something GDPR, and we'd like to understand from you how it works. But moving on, Hadi, your views about yourself first, and then what exactly is data governance, and why it is crucial in this digital landscape. If you can also just share your views about in general.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Hadi Tabani. I am the CEO of Liquid Technologies. We are a primary technology consulting firm focused on design, development, data, and AI. Currently, we're working with Fortune 100 clients across the world. And once you start working with clients of that stature, data governance becomes primary and essential to your longevity in the business. What is data governance? As Adnan Saab very well explained really well, it establishes the framework around the data quality within an organization. So it is imperative for any organization that wants to last and that wants the people within its organization to use and not abuse the data within the organization, to keep it within secure and be integral within the chasms of the policy, to endure compliance. And that is the key part of what a data governance policy does. Within our organizations, for example, we have to share our data governance policy for all the data that we use and collate with our client entities. So we have to make sure that any data that comes from email, from private accounts, or on Snowflake, AWS, GCP's networks, how we use that data, who has access to that data, and using the lowest authority for data access is the crucial way to make sure that the security remains intact. In Pakistan, specifically, when we work with local clients, for example, Engro or KE, they have their own internal data governance policies and data governance committees to ensure the relevance and usage of the data remains pretty strict. So it is essential to other companies that we do not work with, but hopefully are doing this, to have a basic data governance policy that establishes that framework and puts a strategic discipline for defining and implementing those policies and processes, so that responsibilities for effective data management are used. This mitigates massive risks within data breaches and non-compliance, and streamlines operations so that we can grow and scale the similar way how Fortune 100 companies grow and scale. We should learn from them. These data governance policies are usually also publicly online and can be easily used, read, and implemented within any organization. If you do not have access to them, reach out to us.
Yeah, we have recently come across a few links where I could actually see all my information by just putting in either my cell phone number, and it would display everything. And you rightly said that companies like NFL and other SAP shops, at least I can say, that within the SAP landscape, there's the master data governance itself. It's a tool. So most of them are adopting, and you're absolutely right. In different perspective, it is pretty much important to have this governance, framework at least. So, it actually works. And when it comes to coordinating with other suppliers, so yes, we are beginning, but surely it'll take some time, but we will land up somewhere. Ahmed Saab, sir, your introduction a little bit and your views on the topic, very interesting. I wish I had 3 or 4 hours to keep on doing the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. My name is Ahmed Javid, and I'm CEO of Cytellite, which primarily offers a digital trust services, including cyber security, privacy, and resiliency within Middle East. So, bringing almost more than a couple of decades experience in the similar areas, I would say just what has been said about the data governance. I mean, I'll start from the labeling the data as a crown jewel of any organization. If any organization can lose its digital infrastructure, that can be rebuilt though, but the data, without data, it's not possible. So that's what talking about data governance is. Basically they're talking about the existential threat for any organization. I mean, if we define data for any organization, it's basically the bloodline. So considering that the importance of the data for any organization today, I mean, definitely there is a requirement to define a formal way of managing the data, which generally we refer to as a digital governance or the data governance, where we primarily define the roles and responsibilities, that who will do what, how, when, in order to ensure that our digital infrastructure, which we aim to make it like more secure, robust, and resilient, our data layer reflects the same. So in order to ensure the security of our infrastructure, of course, we ensure the security of data, preserving the confidentiality, integrity, and availability in each and every layer of our infrastructure. Similarly, from a resiliency point of view, we ensure the appropriate backups, recovery, and the disaster recovery testing and so forth. However, the quality is one of the important parameter which everyone needs to consider from a business point of view. So this is digital governance primarily is a shared responsibility among the related stakeholders, starting from business, who defines the meaning for the data for the organization, so which makes the data and information which has been used to you take critical business decisions. However, as far as data governance is concerned, the core responsibilities are divided into few roles, which I would like to highlight. First of all, data governance as an enterprise initiative is generally among across the different industries is owned by the business leadership. And then we have a new related roles which have been introduced now with the more inclusion of the data science field, and the growth within the same is data stewardships and the data administrator, which is different than the normal database administrator. So what, as Adnan Saab and Hadi mentioned about the metadata, so that's primarily the responsibility of the data administrator, and the related, the putting the classification label for that data set, or defining the proper or filling up the proper fields of the metadata is the responsibility of data steward from the business with the help of business background, as well as the data administrator, which basically puts into the data dictionary and so forth. So our traditional roles related to that is a database administrator, which takes care of the backups, recovery, and so forth. But being that said, enforcing this from a policy point of view is a prime responsibility of the business leadership, which should be led with the shared forum. You can refer it as a steering group or something. But considering that as an enterprise initiative, of course, the key stakeholders within that forum or the steering group should be from business, from technology, as well as risk management.
Javid sir, just Ahmed sir, wait, just and add on to his question. Like KSA, we know, but apart from KSA, in the rest of the GCC, how strict and how effective are the data governance rules? I'm just out of curiosity asking you, since you're working within this market, just for understanding and information of all.
Right, considering the increasing number of the cyber attacks which is happening, there is a serious feeling which has been emerged among the leaderships of the organizations to define that appropriate mechanisms with the help of frameworks where regulators' roles becomes more important, pivotal, which now I think the current wave has basically taken up data governance really seriously, because you cannot put up a data privacy or data classification mechanism bef- without properly defining the data governance layer. So defining the full life cycle of the data with the help of, like, of course, while especially current wave of data privacy, which has been considered very seriously post to the GDPR success in the European Union and so forth. And of course, the AI, emerging AI, the generative AI has caused a lot of challenges to the tech sector around the globe. So they are taking very seriously in order to and considering data governance as a prerequisite before implementing the digital privacy regulations and the mechanisms.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the information. Zeeshan Saab, over to you. After Hadi and Ahmed Javid Saab, who are also working, providing solutions and working with different organizations, I would request you to share your introduction. After your introduction, share your views and your experiences about how and it is important, and how the your experience says इसको organizational level पे कितना इसको हम लेके चल रहे हैं, and how mature are we and what's the journey.
Okay, so myself is Zeeshan Bokhari, and I'm the CEO of GlowBug Technologies. GlowBug Technologies is a digital transformation consulting organization where we help, especially the public sector, locally and internationally, to adopt different technologies, and how we can organize data, and what governance requirements are there, considering different aspects working between different countries in terms of data processing and so forth. So just a brief background about myself. I was myself Director General for International Cooperation at the Ministry of IT, and had been in the public policy space for quite some time. Had the opportunity to work at the World Bank as their prime consultant for digital development, and had the opportunity to work on the digital Pakistan policy, then the artificial intelligence policy. That is one of the initiatives which we had at the GlowBug Technologies, and helped organizations such as Utility Stores Corp to help them, organize their entire infrastructure in terms of consulting, and making that pretty much, providing them with the enterprise architecture and so forth. So, as Ahmed, Javid Saab, Hadi, and Adnan has already mentioned about, a lot about what data governance is all about in an enterprise space. So I would just try to, give you a different or a macro perspective of how the governments see what data governance is, and, how they want to actually go about it. And definitely it has an impact on the enterprises at the end of the day, because they are going through a lot. Because I've been in the at the helm of affairs when it came to Googles and the Facebooks coming and visiting us at the ministry, and raising the concerns on data governance policies, and data protection policies, and so forth. So let me take a step back first. What is in itself data? How the government itself defines data, so that we can go into the data governance. So data is basically divided into two major parts. One is the public data, and the other is personal data. Okay, so within personal data, we have critical data, and this is then there is another type which is called sensitive data. Now, these type of data, definitions are basically would provide the basis to the actors of data on how you can do the sharing of data. For instance, we talk about data controller and the data processor. So whether data processor, which type of data a data processor can actually manage, and with the consent of the data controller. So this is how the entire data governance ecosystem works. Now, if you put this entire topic into perspective, like आप जिसको बोलते हैं दरिया को कूजे में बंद करना, then comes the role of enterprise architecture, which we have already been talking. All our great colleagues who are just sitting in this conversation. So that's where, whether it's government enterprise architecture or an enterprise architecture for different enterprises, big enterprises, small enterprises, and so forth. So these set of rules, policies, regulations, they are all organized in a top-down trickle effect, which is actually organized or run by the governments globally, right? That's where the GDPR comes in. When you talk about the European Commission, in Pakistan, we have the data protection, personal data protection bill, which is yet to be promulgated. However,
and it has some very interesting facts as well.
Absolutely, it has. So that's where the enterprise architecture comes in, where we talk about a lot of first comes the people, then the processes, the technology, and then itself the content. So these are the 4 steps in it. So and what we are actually achieving out of this entire activity, which is called the enterprise architecture, what are the objectives? So as we have already mentioned, we usually term it as SAAPU. So it is about security, accuracy, availability, privacy, and usability. So these are the major objectives of this entire activity of protecting the data and using it for the right purpose. And finally, why it is important: compliance, decision making, innovation, and risk management. Holistically, I'm speaking. Definitely, there are some other reasons and purposes as well. But this is how data is organized, how the governance is organized, and this is how taking it into perspective. Now, again, speaking in the from the perspective of governments, how they are actually looking at data. So they are actually what they are trying to achieve is how they can optimally utilize data for the right use, and bring the benefit to a common person. That's what the policy says, right? So this is just to give you a brief understanding, as you mentioned, that how you put data governance into perspective. So this is just a brief introduction, and definitely once we lean into the discussion, we can talk more about it.
So no, that was very interesting, and definitely pushes me to ask you so many questions. But very quickly, I'll hop on to Kashif Saab. Kashif bhai, you're coming from, you're actually associated with a financial institution, or जिस तरह से हमने बात की, one of the areas या we can say industry जहाँ पे अब data governance or data is mature हो गई हैं ये policies. So your first of all, your introduction, since you are coming from different areas, you have worked in different industries, and then your views about the importance.
जी, थैंक यू सो मच. काशिफ सिद्दीकी, बैंकिंग से ताल्लुक है मेरा, और चूंकि बैंकिंग से ताल्लुक है तो जाहिर है स्टेट बैंक इसको गवर्न कर रहा होता है पाकिस्तान में. तो जहाँ तक गवर्नेंस की बात है, ओवरऑल हमारा टॉपिक डेटा गवर्नेंस है, तो सबसे डेटा पे तो काफी बात हो चुकी है, लेकिन असल जो फोकस है वो जो मेरा है, जो मेरी अपनी क्रेडेंशियल्स हैं, बीइंग CGIT एंड कोबिट, पहले तो ओवरऑल गवर्नेंस को समझने की जरूरत है कि गवर्नेंस इज व्हाट इज गवर्नेंस ऑल अबाउट. तो स्टेट बैंक की जहां तक बात है तो गवर्नेंस का उसका फ्रेमवर्क मौजूद है, जैसे ETGRMF कहते हैं, मई 2017 में आया था, उसका नेक्स्ट वर्जन अभी आने वाला है, प्रॉब्ली ड्राफ्ट हो चुका है, अंडर साइनिंग प्रोसेस में, आई डोंट नो कब तक आता है एग्जैक्टली. बट ओवरऑल किसी भी चीज में दो चीजों के बैलेंस का नाम गवर्नेंस है, राइट? परफॉर्मेंस एंड कन्फॉर्मेंस, एज पर CGIT, एज पर गवर्नमेंट। आप किसी भी इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड को देख लें गवर्नेंस के हवाले से, तो जब तक किसी भी फंक्शन के अंदर परफॉर्मेंस कन्फॉर्मेंस की बैलेंस नहीं होगा, उस तक उस चीज में गवर्नेंस को हम अचीव नहीं कर सकते। ठीक है, अब डेटा गवर्नेंस, तो पाकिस्तान लेवल पे डेटा एंड देन गवर्नेंस दोनों को मिलाना, कनेक्ट करना एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है आज के दिन ना। ऑफ कोर्स यूनिवर्सिटीज में अभी वो लेवल नहीं है एजुकेशन का, और इदारों में गवर्नेंस या डेटा के हवाले से कोई यू नो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को फिक्स नहीं किया गया। बट जहां तक गवर्नेंस की ओवरऑल पर्सपेक्टिव की बात है, आई मीन एज फार एज बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री इज कंसर्न, तो स्टेट बैंक काफी इस पर स्ट्राइव कर रहा है और डिफरेंट स्टैंडर्ड्स को लाने की कोशिश कर रहा है, अपने गवर्नेंस फ्रेमवर्क को भी इम्प्रूव करने की कोशिश कर रहा है। और गवर्नेंस के अंदर अगर मजीद देखें डिफरेंट वर्टिकल्स, उसमें रिस्क की बात की गई है, उसमें बेनिफिट की बात की गई है, उसमें रिसोर्स की बात की गई है। तो इन सब चीजों को डेटा के अंदर और दूसरे फंक्शंस के अंदर लाना बहुत जरूरी है, सो दैट वी कैन अचीव एट द एंड ऑफ द डे डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस। हमारा असल में टू स्टार्ट विद द एंड इन माइंड, तो हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव ये होना चाहिए टू अचीव डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस। जी।
Thank you, Kashif bhai. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Adnan bhai, hard to wait and hold. Just tell us about, at least at a high level, for the larger audience and understanding, what is GDPR and how it works. Adnan bhai, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Apologies, didn't realize. Yeah, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, came in 2017, I think 25th of May. So it's all about the personal data. So EU is very much worried about, and they are the, I would say, within the whole world, the this is the most hardest intellectual property, the personal data regulation available. The second best we normally call it is California regulation, which is quite similar to GDPR. So the GDPR in a nutshell is looking for the privacy and protection of individuals' data, whether it is the basic data we're talking about, like name and email address, or it is confidential or highly privileged data, for example, medical record of criminal record, your association with any political parties. Those kind of data is highly confidential and it should not be shared without due permission. And there are some then clauses around data subject requests we have to deal with very commonly within the organization, whereby an employee left company and they can come back and saying, I would like to have information about certain aspect of my duty within the organization. This is a very common topic around data subject requests. So we have to hold data of our employees, our customers for a certain period of time. And the data access from that perspective is also quite important. Within EU, the Irish Data Protection Office, called the most strictest one within EU. If you notice, all the major penalties apply to Facebook or any other global organization, most of them coming from Irish Data Protection Office. But it is applied within the EU side as well. And it's not only about the data where it is hosted, it's about the residents of EU member states. So I may be using an application which is hosted in the US, but because I'm EU resident, the law will still apply to those companies. So an example of all global companies like Facebook and those things, that's one of the reasons you will see some of the major breaches, especially like in Facebook. It was done by Irish Data Protection Office. So make sure that data is protected and it's used for the purpose which is defined in the when you acquire that data. The data consent must be given by individuals willingly. There shouldn't be any force. So one of the key change you may have noticed, if you go to any EU-based websites, bare minimum, you'll see there's a privacy notice, and the website is not allowed to collect your data without your consent. There was another thing changed with respect to GDPR on websites. I'm not sure it's happening in the Asian market, whereby if I'm filling a form, let's suppose I go to any website and they're asking me to register for it. It used to be by default like consent that I'm already subscribing to it. Now the law is a bit different now. So when you're filling a form and they would like to keep your email address, it's an opt-in. So it's the individual who needs to decide whether I want to opt in for the company to keep my data, and it's my right to request for a copy of their data, and also a right to delete that data as well. So within the GDPR perspective, you make sure, like if I'm talking about the organizational perspective for employees' data, you need to make sure where the data is hosted. Like a common thing we do within EU is, if we are hosting a data, our first priority is, if data is hosted to one of the data centers, it's hosted in EU, it makes our life easier. If the data is hosted outside EU, there are additional checks and balances you have to do around data processor agreement. So by default, we always look for, can you host data within EU? If not, then additional checks and balance needs to be applied. I think, as Zeeshan has mentioned around the data processor and also data collector thing, it's a really important point within the GDPR. We have to deal with every other day, that who is the data collector and who is the data processor. So, for example, if business will come back with us and looking for an application, if the data that, because of that application, once you deploy, requires personal data, then we have to do data protection impact assessment. And there are two levels of impact assessment you have to do under GDPR. One is the data that you're collecting. You need to define what is the sad purpose of that data, and you can't use it for any other purposes unless you inform the end users. Once that is decided, then you look for, are we capturing excessive data? That's also very important. If you don't need to know someone's additional information, you're not required to do so. You have to justify. And if you are accessing additional data, for example, HR data, for example, so then you have to do detailed data protection impact assessment, and then decide. You need to justify, and then keep log of all the data that you're keeping it. You need to keep log of the data of data retention, and also you need to make sure the data, whatever the set purpose, you can't change it. You have to go back and do the data protection impact assessment. So it's quite detailed, but in last maybe 6 years now, so it's embedded into processes in every global organization who are operating from EU. But I've seen other countries like India, they are following quite similar one. UK, who used to be part of EU, but now it's a separate country, and they followed the same thing. It's mostly like a copy paste and few changes. I'm not sure what we are doing in Pakistan, but it's quite similar and common. Within EU, if we are talking about individuals in Germany, we call normally from we use a GDPR plus, because if you're dealing with individuals who's based in Germany, it's even more restrictive than the GDPR in terms of the data of German residents should not be outside Germany, not even EU. So they have to do additional clauses. Same as the processing of data should be within that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hadi, being a Pakistani solution provider, you work so much with US companies. When you ask all these questions that Adnan Saab has just mentioned, that we do this with this, what is your response, and how do you give this comfort to your customers sitting outside Pakistan?
Absolutely.
And
I think
what I would rather put it this way, this is a challenge, and how do you overcome?
absolutely. And Abdullah, Raza, and Adnan Saab, first of all, the first thing you do is you put up a clear framework of how the organization runs as far as data governance and data policies, how they're structured, and put in a culture that is derived from data centricity. And this is very important, and this is existential for Pakistani companies, because the first question a US company, a mid-sized company even, would ask a Pakistani company is like, what are your data laws? Because they do not believe that we have data laws here. We have PICA, which is the Pakistan Act on Cyber.
But again, they are still in working, yeah.
Absolutely. Most of the legislations are not passed. They're still under construction in policy making, right? So how we give our clients comfort is critical for us to survive. And that's the one thing that I took out from Accenture was their IP contract that each one of our employees signs on a bond paper before they're signed on. And it labels essentially what data is within the organization, what is organization-specific data, what is public data, and what is client-specific data. And it creates clear guidelines on how to use and discard data after usage, so that it involves an entire data life cycle so that we can use and clear out data that we don't need. So clear data governance framework is very important for any organization to succeed. And then we have targeted training programs for our key data stakeholders that have basically, these are online LMS trainings that we give at onboarding as well as every 6 months to a year, so that everyone within the organization is clear that we are using international standards of data governance. Integration of privacy considerations into policies is also very important. So any publicly available data is okay to deal with, but if is there any specific, for example, phone numbers, emails, we try to anonymize as much as possible before they even enter our systems. We have regular tailored trainings to make sure that our team and even our contractors understand this policy. So we have a standard document that we sent across all of our delivery centers. And we have delivery centers in Pakistan, we have delivery centers in Dubai and Philippines now. So the US hub enables us to dictate the terms and also give trust to our clients across the world that we take this very seriously. Specifically because we also give consulting around data governance, how to deal with the data. And the first thing in that is to assign what is the data that is coming in, right? Who's the user of the data? Who's the controller of the data? Who's the processor of the data? And by doing this, we align with PICA laws, we align with GDPR laws and CCPA principles. And it reflects the commitment to global best practices in data protection from our side, at least. And I think once you have that framework enabled within your organization, you keep talking about that, your clients catch on very quickly because they're smart, they understand the value we bring to the table. And as everyone in this organization understands, once it comes to data, everything is, at the end of the day, auditable. So having good data audits of where did that data go? Was it even taken out properly? Was it discarded properly? It enables us to keep that trust on a longer term basis so that I can not worry about the data policies or how the data is being used, but also build the trust around the data governance.
I'll come back to you with other questions around this thing. It's I'm sure it's easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and in Pakistan, very specifically, I think we need more governance around it from private side as well as public side. The public is lacking in this. For example, if someone leaves our company, and what are the ways for us to track them down?
Absolutely.
There's a bond that we sign, but these are international compliant bonds.
Yeah.
What guarantee do we have?
I'll come up with two questions, one for Ahmed Saab, but I'll request Bokhari Saab for the first question, which is pretty much related to regulations. Bokhari Saab, बात हुई पीका की भी बात हुई, and you also mentioned कि यहाँ पे पाशा की तवसुत से काफी सारे there are a few things going on and cooking as we discussed initially. Sir, how mature are we and where are we? Where do we stand right now? And where do you see, what time frame do you see कि हमें वो maturity level पे आने में लगेगा? And what are the potential challenges? I know it's a long question, लेकिन वही again अगर आप दरिया को कूदने में बंद कर सकें.
Okay, I'll start with a very interesting use case which we actually encountered when I was in the government. A lot of companies, Pasha itself, and companies came to us and they said that we are facing severe challenges while working in the European market because of the GDPR, and the reason was because there were so many compliances, and one of the prerequisites to work with GDPR compliant countries was that you need to have a local data protection law, which is somewhat in coherence with the GDPR itself. So we had nothing in place at that point in time, and that was one of the biggest concerns. So while we were actually trying to figure out that how we are going to go about it, in the meanwhile, what GDPR did, what we did was we started researching, what are the issues and what are the challenges. And what I came across was when even today, when you go to the GDPR website to get the information, they, in order to implement their regulations, they have provided agreements templates there through which you can actually sign an agreement with countries who are in compliance or have some sort of a data protection bill which is acceptable to the European Commission. And those countries who don't have any such bill in place, so you have template of agreements which any European company could actually download from there and make it as a baseline, and you can give in your scope and and go on sign the agreements. Now apart from that, working with American companies, I'm sure we have great people here sitting, and they will also validate this, that they have their own ways of doing it. Like you need to have your own data policies and data
Yeah.
laws.
So like Hadi mentioned, that
Yes,
everybody comes up
it
with their
is
article.
enterprise centric. Yes, that is enterprise centric. And the second thing is they go for indemnity bonds on that side. So that's what they do at this point in time, and that's what you have to pass on to your employees, which is usually not as traceable as possible, because there is so much fluctuation in terms of holding your employees and so forth, because the lack of competence and lack of experience, and the demand in the market for developers, it's really making difficult for organizations to live up to the expectations globally. Now, having said that, in Pakistan, PECA is a Pakistan Electronic Crime Act. It means that if somebody has committed a crime online, only then that act is going to come into place. It is not about data governance and data privacy, which means that we are, since we don't have that understanding, so that's why we actually, we actually say that, okay, PECA is something which deals with data privacy and data governance on that side. So yes, it is about the implementation and how you are going to be treated if you are found in a breach. Yes, but mainly it is the responsibility of the data protection bill itself. Now, the data protection bill has been
सर
finalized. It has
कहाँ
been.
है वो सर? वो कब आने लगा है सर? वो बिल्ली थैले से कब
Surveillance
बाहर
The
policy.
thing is,
It's
I think it should be promulgated soon. I think it should be promulgated through the
There is also, Zeeshan sir, there's also a personal privacy act that is
जी जी,
in policy
ये दो
of the
चीजें आ
state.
रही है. One is
data
personal and
protection
other
bill.
one
That
is
is data protection
gen.
bill, because we worked on the national artificial intelligence policy ourselves. So,
Yes.
and what we did was we actually we tried to create a sort of a direction for the artificial intelligence policy to be able to, if there has to be something where artificial intelligence, if there are some rules and regulations to be implemented, that has to come, because it's all about data, even in artificial intelligence, nothing else. How you are actually, working with the data at the end of the day. So, having said that, PECA is not data protection and data governance. Okay, so don't look at PECA for that. It is mainly about how you are, using online. It's all about, personally. For example, if you are trying to, harass someone or do some,
Yes,
some criminal
exactly.
activity
Yeah,
and so forth, right? So
exactly.
and so forth. So that's a separate aspect or separate discussion altogether. Data protection bill is on its way. However, as Kashif Saab has already mentioned earlier, that the sectoral regulators, they have already started to put their own governance regulations in place. For example, SECP, for example, State Bank of Pakistan, NADRA, they already have their own regulations in place, and they are very easily available on their websites, and you can go and
Absolutely, yeah. And even State Bank and so on and so forth. So these are the few mature organizations, they have it. And you're absolutely right. PECA is more relevant to cyber crime, we can say, जिसमें कि
and,
या harassments और उस लेवल उस साइड की बात आ जाती है.
and one more
PECA.
interesting thing is that
जावेद साहब, आपने बड़ी एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात की थी सर, एंड दैट इज अ चैलेंज टू एवरीवन वर्किंग इन टेक्नोलॉजी. आपने रोल्स की बात की थी. And as a solution provider, how do you sell this idea to your stakeholders, to your clients, to your customers? कि जी, these are roles which are important, and it's not just like कि जी company में जो फारिग बैठा है आप उसको role देते हैं. You need the best people out of your company to out of your the lot that you have. how difficult it is the idea to set the idea it is to sell this idea to your stakeholders and your clients.
I believe, considering the topic itself, it's much easier for us to sell our services, because selling is all about focusing on the customer needs. And it's unavoidable today to have such frameworks implemented and proper appropriate security controls around to ensure the security of
Yeah, actually,
PII.
the perspective, just to add, I mean, जब हम when we talk about data governance, it's not just to, for instance, it's not just a fancy or buzzword to have, good to have. It's like it has, further benefits going forward. कि अगर आपका data एक governance framework के through आ रहा है, so then only you can make good use out of data. So this is why I think it's very important जो आपने बात की, to have proper roles and clearly defined accountabilities.
Exactly. The point remains the same, that the organizations who are taking the privacy seriously, they are realizing the fact that how important it is to discover the data first. First of all, organizations, they need to know that where the data resides, in what state, in what form. On top of it, how sensitive it is to classify the data, because uh, like while doing the risk assessments in the organization, like when there is a subset, if we take it as a DPIA as a subset of the risk assessment, our information risk register should have a label to attach, like it's a PII related data, so that they can classify or treat the data from a privacy standpoint as well, which requires additional security controls to be implemented. So that's embedded from within the data governance point of view. That when if we do not define a complete end-to-end life cycle within the organization, we will not be able to appropriately classify the data based on the sensitivity. And if we don't do that, we will not be able to cost effectively ensure the security controls are effectively implemented, such as the data encryption technologies. It's cost a lot, and that we don't need to encrypt each and everything. We just need to identify the sensitive data, and then we need to apply the masking and encryption around the PII and so forth. But more importantly, Abdullah sir, which I would like to highlight here, that's quite a lot has been said here about the principles of the GDPR, the from a compliance perspective, how we organizations should achieve the compliance. My point is, or a selling point would be that when what organizations should do today. I usually play a card of make it easy or look like easy, such as when I post to the GDPR fifth celebrate birthday, which we have celebrated few months back, and we have learned quite a lot, positive pros and cons what we have achieved so far. International community has woken up as well, and they have issued the new legislations and the standards about the privacy. Now, ISO 27701 is about the privacy information management system. So that is the play card which can be played as well. Most of the organizations are already ISMS compliant, and they can easily achieve with adding some additional controls, privacy controls, to achieve ISO 27701. On top of it, recently, just 3 days back, considering the the privacy risk from the AI or generative AI tools, international global community have activated once again. European Union has released European Union AI Act, mostly talking about the privacy challenges. And now there is a new standard which has been released just 3 days before, ISO 42001, which is basically regulating the AI systems, focusing on the sanctity or the privacy measures, which is being used by especially the big tech. They need to have a proper the consent management processes in a legalized manner, as well as IP rights should be properly managed, and so forth.
Excellent. Uh, इतनी सारी we've talked so much about bringing new policies and adopting new best practices. Kashif Saab, there are so many regulations and pretty much governed as we speak. आपके area में and the financial institutions. Let's put it this way कि in governance laws rules या guidelines इनके होते हुए टेक्नोलॉजी adoption कितना बड़ा challenge बन जाता है? Does it become a showstopper or
जी
does it put hurdles? Yeah.
जी, बिल्कुल ठीक कहा आपने। देखें कुछ इंडस्ट्री में मिसकॉन्सेप्शन है ना। पहले तो हमें समझने की जरूरत है इसकी बुनियादी प्रॉब्लम क्या है। आई मीन ठीक है, हम गवर्नेंस की बात कर रहे हैं, क्या हमारे कंट्री में गवर्नेंस पढ़ाई जाती है किसी यूनिवर्सिटी में एज अ कोर्स, एज अ डिग्री? बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन मार्क है इसके अंदर। क्या उसकी रेलेवेंट फैकल्टी मौजूद है? अनदर क्वेश्चन मार्क। एंड देन सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। अगर आप कंपनीज में जाते हैं, इंडस्ट्री में जाते हैं, बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री में किसी में, तो अगर हम डेटा गवर्नेंस की बात करें तो क्या डेटा की गवर्नेंस के हवाले से कोई रोल्स डिफाइंड हैं जिसमें वो अकाउंटेबल है कोई बंदा, या उसमें रिस्पॉन्सिबल है? जो एक हम रेसी चार्ट बना रहे होते हैं बाय एंड लार्ज किसी भी इंडस्ट्री के अंदर।
सर
जहां
आपके
तक
आपके एरिया में कितनी क्लियरली डिफाइंड है रोल्स? ये बिल्कुल रेशी की जो बात हो रही है, रोल्स एंड अकाउंटेबिलिटी मैट्रिक्स की।
देखें, क्रेडिट गोज टू स्टेट बैंक फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल। जैसे मैंने कहा, मई 2017 में इनका फ्रेमवर्क था। हमारे यहाँ ऑलमोस्ट जितनी मुझे नॉलेज है, तमाम बैंक के अंदर गवर्नेंस का रोल मौजूद है और अकॉर्डिंगली डेटा के हवाले से भी रोल मौजूद है। वो कितना कंप्लाई होता है, दैट्स अनदर क्वेश्चन, लेकिन बाकायदा रोल उसकी हायरार्की में मौजूद है और वो फॉलो होता है। क्यों? वजह है उसकी। गवर्नेंस फ्रेमवर्क अगर आप पढ़ें, मेरा इत्तेफाक एससीसीपी में भी काम करने का हुआ है, उसके फ्रेमवर्क में स्टेट बैंक में भी हुआ है, इवन सामा जो सऊदी अरब का, आजकल मैं उसमें भी इन्वॉल्व हूँ। बाय एंड लार्ज गवर्नेंस के अंदर, यानी गवर्नेंस फ्रेमवर्क के अंदर कोई 6 वर्टिकल्स हैं। तो अभी हम जैसे बात कर रहे हैं ना इन्फॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी को, उसके साथ इंटैक्ट कर रहे हैं। इन्फॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी का पूरे 6 वर्टिकल्स में से एक वर्टिकल है और एक है ऑडिट का, बाकी 4 है आईटी के। तो पहले तो ये समझने की जरूरत है कि गवर्नेंस आईटी के अंदर होगी तो आईटी गवर्नेंस कहलाएगी, गवर्नेंस इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी के अंदर होगी तो इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी गवर्नेंस कहलाएगी, प्रोवाइडेड कि हम उस परफॉर्मेंस और कंफॉर्मेंस के बैलेंस को मेंटेन रखें। एंड देन उसके 4-5 जो वर्टिकल्स एज पर इंटरनेशनल बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस है उसको फॉलो कर रहे हों, तो कोई भी फंक्शन हो इंडस्ट्री के अंदर, वहां पे हम गवर्नेंस को मेंटेन कर सकते हैं। बट अगेन बुनियादियात मिसिंग है। जैसे मैंने कहा, यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पे, जो कि हमारी नर्सरी है, स्टूडेंट लेवल पे, फैकल्टी लेवल पे, एंड देन कम्स। तो इतना ज्यादा अगर हम एडवांस जाते हैं ना गवर्नेंस लेवल पे या फ्रेमवर्क लेवल पे, तो हमें अपने 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 आप ये रियलाइज करने की भी जरूरत है कि हमें वो 3 चीजें होती है ना, पीपल, प्रोसेस, टेक्नोलॉजी। तो यस, पीपल में हमें चैलेंज मौजूद है। जहां तक टेक्नोलॉजी की बात है, तो गवर्नेंस का इटसेल्फ कोई स्पेसिफिक टूल नहीं है मार्केट में। ये गवर्नेंस गाय का काम है कि वो टूल को रेलेवेंट गवर्नेंस फ्रेमवर्क के अंदर अडॉप्ट करने में मदद दे। फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट की मैं बात करूं, तो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट के बेशुमार टूल हैं, लेकिन वो कितना पीएमओ गवर्नेंस कर रहा है, इसके लिए आपको बाकायदा प्रोसेसेस की जरूरत है, डिजाइन की जरूरत है, ऑफ कोर्स पॉलिसीज की जरूरत है, एंड ऑफ कोर्स टोन सेटिंग एंड देन बैलेंसिंग एंड देन सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। तो ये सब चीजें होनी चाहिए जी।
बिल्कुल ठीक कहा सर आपने। खैर, टाइम अब हमारे पास सिर्फ 5-7 मिनट रह गए हैं। अदनान भाई, और अगर हादी मैं आपसे एक ज्वाइंट क्वेश्चन डालूं फॉर यू टू टेक 2 minutes each maybe, and sir, we have a very few, obviously, in the developed part of the world, data-driven organizations. So first of all, what are data-driven organizations, and how far we stand from being a data-driven organization wali country?
Hadi, you want to go ahead first, or?
So yes, absolutely. I think Pakistan is not far. To 1 minute answer is Pakistan is not far. We have a company called Element Data. We sell publicly available data sets on multiple marketplaces around the world to Fortune 100 clients. We are talking from Pakistan. Some of my team is in Pakistan, some of them all over the world. But primarily the team that handles it is in Pakistan. And we are dealing with IQVIA, we are dealing with Vertex Pharmaceuticals, we are dealing with Roche Pharmaceuticals. We have calls right now with Federal Reserve of the US, with Geico Insurance. So we are not far from being a data-driven organizations within Pakistan. It's the mentality and the structure that is required. And that the thing about AI right now is that you need just one person understanding the end-to-end concept. And then they put the structure down for the governance and execution practices. Pakistanis are very passionate, very talented, and very energetic to learn. It's how you make them learn. And if we put the pathway for our citizens to understand that this is the next way to earn generational wealth, they will learn, they will earn, and they will grow. And that's what we need Pakistan to do.
जरा नम हो तो ये मिट्टी बहुत जरखेज है साकी, no doubt. जी
Absolutely.
अदनान साहब.
I think there is, with respect to talent, there's no doubt about it. With the young talent like Hadi, I think I attended one of the sessions with you maybe 2-3 years ago when I was in Karachi on holidays. So I can see young generation coming up and talking about data. So I think the issue I'm seeing in general, because I do visit every year or so to Pakistan, is awareness to among a common person about how important is my data and who is taking my data. So I'll give you one example. I attended one of the parent-teacher meeting of my daughter, and this was year one in secondary, and then the parent-teacher association was collecting data about the parent's name, email address, and phone number. And there was the start of that peer parent-teacher meeting. They were not talking about kids or anything. The first thing they talked about is, we are collecting this data. Your kid is in 6th class, and here is from 6th to 11th. Those 5 years, your data will be kept with us, and we are only going to use it when we need to send an email about anything to do with your parent-teacher association, and we are not going
Clarity,
to use the data.
details,
Yes,
yeah.
clarity. And also, if you are not comfortable with during the 6 years, you can opt out anytime. And we are not going to share this data with even a school. And why they were doing it, and they're saying we are compliant with GDPR, is every common person on the street understand GDPR here. That was not the case back in 2017. I think that law has brought awareness to individuals. When I go back to Pakistan, if I'm looking for a SIM card, I'm being asked to use my finger impression. I'm really shocked about those things, like why I should give my finger impression to a common person sitting on in a small shop where their data is being resided, why they are validating my ID card information through a machine. So if you talk to someone in European Union, they will be really shocked about why this data is being collected. Is there any protection of their data? What happens if the another data is being released? So the common person is not even
No.
aware.
I'll extend you a link where you can just enter your ID card and you get your details of your, or rather,
And
just put in
people may
your
not even
cell phone
fuss
number and
about
you
it.
get rest of the details.
Yes. And maybe if you talk to common person, they will think that, oh, it's okay, it's very good. I
What's
enter
wrong
my
with it?
number and I
Yeah,
get everything.
yeah,
What's
absolutely.
wrong with it? So this perception has to be changed. The risk it will bring to the data. I think in terms of the IT level, the IT industry in Pakistan is thriving, as Hadi mentioned. The type of difficulty I'm thinking about companies in Pakistan will face when they deal with European Union or companies based in European Union is around data transfer agreement. Normally, is EU is trying to agree a data transfer agreement. There is a recent development happened with US, EU and US privacy framework. I think in
That's quite
July,
persistent.
Biden has signed. So you
Yeah.
can't just transfer data from EU out of any other country. So you have to have an agreement. At the moment, as Zeeshan mentioned, I'm not sure is the data privacy law when this will be enacted in Pakistan. The next thing is to look for having bilateral agreement with big companies where you need to deal with data transfer agreement, because it will be very difficult, especially when you're dealing with companies who are working on sensitive data. They will be highly reluctant to get this, to have this agreement. What we are seeing, I think, because I deal with companies in Pakistan and India, what we are seeing here is the data still reside in EU, but given access to individuals who are based
Yeah.
in India and Pakistan. That's a little bit different than data is actually transferred physically. So I'm not sure, Hadi, in your case, are you copying data from EU into a data center in Pakistan, or you're just accessing it? So these are
No,
two
it's
different
it's it's
things
it's
there.
just direct access, and perhaps it would require a consent to be
Yes,
signed between the two parties. But
absolutely.
otherwise, I don't think at this point in time any service provider would require data chunks to be downloaded here and then processed and then sent back. So
Yeah.
yes,
So primarily, none of the data centers are in Pakistan for the
yeah.
Okay.
the
For
cloud
any big
providers we
three, at
work
least, are
on.
not here. Yeah.
So
Okay.
GCP, AWS, Snowflake. Snowflake is what primarily we use for data monetization, right? And none of and they're very strict with data
Yeah.
policies, right? So we cannot even copy without organization awareness a data extract from one region to another. So I think that's something that first step for that is to have a data center in Pakistan so that we can create our own data laws and build the trust for
Absolutely.
international companies to build with us and invest with us.
So yeah, I think I'll add just my 2 cents that we have data centers. We have started to develop like rapid compute and PDCL, and then there are certain facilities. But again, yes, we need to enhance the service level and the standards to a certain level. Or I mean, the best way would be, inshallah, sooner than later, when with these big threes, one of the big threes comes in and do some investment in Pakistan. So I don't know how soon and how long would it take, but. Quickly, closing remarks, Ahmed Saab, from your side, please.
Right. So at the end, I mean, just I would like to touch upon 3 points agenda for the organizations who are required to achieve the compliance with the privacy. Without data governance framework properly defined within the organizations with clearly defined roles and responsibilities, it is unachievable. One thing. Second thing is the taking the help of the automation tools always help until unless we properly define the data lifecycle using the data discovery tools, data classification tools, and related supporting technologies such as DLP and so forth. But at the end, regulators have to play an important role in the organizations, just as far as our geography is concerned, because yet the regulations are not clearly defined, which basically brings the ground level challenge for organizations to properly define the DPO or so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Lovely insight. Kashif Saab, from your side, Kashif bhai, your closing remarks from your side, please.
जी हमेशा से बेसिक्स पे फोकस करने की ज़रूरत है। जब तक हम गवर्नेंस के कॉन्सेप्ट को स्प्रेड आउट नहीं करेंगे, उसको अंडरस्टैंड नहीं करेंगे, उसको समझेंगे नहीं, उसकी नर्सरी को नर्चर नहीं करेंगे, बिल्डअप नहीं करेंगे, बाकी फंक्शंस में इम्प्लीमेंट करना वो सेकंड स्टेप है। तो इन पाकिस्तान हमें इन 3-4 चीज़ों पे काम करने की ज़रूरत है। फिर नेचुरली बाकी फंक्शंस में खुद ब खुद गवर्नेंस आना शुरू हो जाएगी, जब लोग उसको अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे, हमारे पास उसके हवाले से पीपल होंगे, ऑफ कोर्स प्रोसेस होंगे, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स टेक्नोलॉजी एज वेल। थैंक यू।
एक्सेलेंट, बिल्कुल सही बात की काशिफ साहब के जब तक हम इसके बेनिफिट्स को नहीं समझेंगे तब तक वी विल कीप टेकिंग इट एज अ हैसल एंड एज अ रेगुलेशन। सो यू आर एब्सोल्युटली स्पॉट ऑन, वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड गो बैक टू द बेसिक्स। दैट्स राइट।
असल में सॉरी अब्दुल्ला, एक चीज और ना, असल में पॉइंट ये है कि अब तक गवर्नेंस जो है ना, वो जो गवर्नेंस गाय है वो सीआईओ की रिपोर्टिंग में है। बड़ा एक कड़वा सच है। कोविड 2019 कहता है, कोविड बहुत पहले से कह रहा है, 96-97 से, देयर मस्ट बी अ सेपरेशन बिटवीन गवर्नेंस एंड मैनेजमेंट ऑब्लिक ऑपरेशंस। हम आज तक उसको सेपरेट नहीं कर पाए हैं, ये बड़ा बुनियादी मसला है जी।
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही। सो अगेन in the journey of maturity, inshallah, sooner than later we'll see this. Bukhari Saab, sir, your comments, final round of comments.
Actually, as far as Pakistan is concerned, first of all, the data regulations and policies, organizations. How I see right now is there is a chaos, and the top-down trickle effect in itself is missing. I'll be very honest. Enterprises are catching up, and the individuals, the users, they are in their infancy stage as far as understanding the data governance and data privacy is concerned. So this is where we stand as of today. Definitely, it takes its due course of time. We all know that today, through global platforms and services, as you know that if you're a Chrome browser user, it is mandatory. In fact, any browser user, it is mandatory for you to accept the cookie settings. This is just one of the areas where people are getting really aware of what privacy is all about, and what type of consent you really need to give and so forth. So on the very user level, I'm just talking about. As far as I said that SMEs and startups, they really need to catch up. Big enterprises, they have the money in their kitty. Government is lagging behind by far right now in terms of their implementation, and that is the reason why we don't see a lot of adoption of data governance and protection, user protection, and so forth. जहाँ पे आप ये देखते हैं सारा जहाँ पे नादरा का data आपको easily accessible and so
Compromise
forth.
हो रहा है, बिल्कुल,
Exactly.
बिल्कुल.
So I think there is we are still catching up, and hopefully at least as far as businesses, global businesses are concerned, I think there are organizations who are actually giving the sigh of relief to international customers, and I think from compliance perspective, there are different initiatives coming in soon. I think down the year you will see a lot of things maturing in Pakistan. That's it
बिल्कुल
from my
सर,
side.
मंजिल
One
थोड़ी
more
दूर
thing,
है, बट हमें हिम्मत करनी पड़ेगी.
Abdullah, I need to drop out because I had a hard stop at 6 p.m. So if you may
Sure,
allow
sure.
me.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Bokhari sir, for your availability. Thank you, even Adnan Saab. He's joining us from Europe, and he also had to catch up another session. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Hadi, Adnan Saab, Ahmed, Javid Saab, and Kashif Saab, for your availability, for your very valuable input. I'm sure this was too short to discuss this interesting topic, but I hope we reconvene again and take this discussion further. Thank you so much to all the audience, and I hope it was information for all of us. Please don't hesitate to place and post your questions in the comments later on, and we shall be able to revert back. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
Allah
Thank you.
Hafiz.
Take care. Allah Hafiz.